Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Anisah binti ZULKIFLI 1182411. I would like to intro about the history and the flow of Al-Jabariyyah. In the history of the development of Islamic thought, there are various streams of thought that differ in ideology and theology after the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the time of the Khulafa Ar-Rashidin. This era is the time where the emergence of groups that stray from the teachings and belief of the true religion of Islam. There is a group that arose of that time was called the Al-Jabariyyah group stream. According to article 1 Zakamarudin, the years of 2000, the name of Al-Jabariyyah is derived from the word Al-Jab. The term in terms of language, the word Al-Jab means compulsion or the lack of will and freedom. Therefore, the name of Al-Jabariyyah is rooted in the word which closely related to human af'al al-ibad and its relationship to the deeds of Allah af'al al-ibad. Al-Jabariyyah group divided into two groups, namely the Al-Jabariyyah Al-Hanisah group and Al-Jabariyyah Al-Mutawassitah group. An example of the group of Al-Jabariyyah Al-Hanisah is like the stream of Al-Jahmiyah, which brought by Jams bin Safwan. In addition, it also includes the stream of Al-Najariyah, Al-Jurariyah, and Al-Bakriyah. According to the view of Aisha Idris, 2017, Jabariyyah understands that human actions are determined by Allah. Human beings are bound by Allah's destiny. They do not have the freedom and independence to do so. So, the belief they bring is the wrong belief, because we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created man to choose which is good and which is bad, obey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or commit.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is SYAIDATUL AKMA binti AHMAD. My matric number 11822424. Now, I want to present about history and how Jabariyyah ideology was formed. The Al-Jabariyyah sect appeared at the end of the reign of Bani Umayyads as a result of religious questions related to Islamic politics, system Islamic politics, which is the question of leadership, imamah or khilafah. In general, Al-Jabariyyah sect and its talk are not accepted and acknowledged by the Muslims because of its passive and negative ideology. This is because of their response, which is contrary to the will and demands of Islam, especially in matters involving the actions and conduct of the government at that time. During the reign of the Bani Umayyah, the Muslims against them because they had made many changes to Islam, covering almost all aspects of life and religion. This got a great reaction among the Muslims who tried to rise up in rebellion to overthrow them. However, the government, especially Bani Umayyah, they are so strong in supporting the thought of Al-Jabariyyah, which is said to take his doctrine from the Ahli As-Salaf. For strengthen the thinking of the group, many false hadith mawdu' is said that to have been deliberately designed and fabricated. The Umayyads in particular give great emphasis and attention in the question of human needs of Ahlul Ibad. They defend the opinion of the Jabariyyah because that opinion is not only appropriate and considers with the will and their desire, but able to release and save them from accusations, committing acts of tyranny, cruelty and oppression on Islam and also on his people. It will also be able to prevent and kill the desires of oppressed Muslims to rise up in revolt against their cruelty for all their deeds, because what they do is by the will of God and not by their own will. In the early stages of the Bani Abbasiyah period, the sect was able to survive for some time. However, it did not last long because of their thinking was not parallel with the evidence of both source of Islamic revelation, Al-Quran and Al-Hadith, as well as common sense rationale. Al-Jabariyyah sect is no longer able to resist the current of thought from other sects that rival it. Next stage, several changes have taken place up until the name of Al-Jabariyyah no longer visible. However, certain aspects of thought they have been absorbed and diffused into several other sects and then supported by thoughtful figures such as As-Sifatiyah, Al-Mushabbihah, Al-Murji'ah, and so on. According to Harun, example of life that understood by Jabariyah can be seen in the condition of the Arab community before Islam. The Arabs, who at that time were very simple and far from knowledge, had to adapt their lives to the atmosphere of the desert with scorching hot and its barren lands and mountains. In such a state of the world, they did not see much of way to change the circumstance around them according to their own desires. They feel weak and powerless in facing of the hardships of life caused by the desert atmosphere. In everyday life, they depend a lot on the will of nature. This leads them to a fatalistic attitude. This attitude sometimes still has not faded completely in their mind, even though they have become Muslims.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Siti Zubaidah and I will explain about the division of the Jabariyyah, hadith and deeds of servant according to Jabariyyah. At the end of this learning, student can differentiate between Jabariyyah sects and other sects. According to Al-Shahrastani in article Mujibir of Law and the Impact of His Thinking in Malaysia by Wan Kamaruddin bin Wan Ali, Al-Jabariyyah divide to two sections. The first one is Al-Jabariyyah Al-Khalisah and the second is Al-Mutawassitah. The small tribes of this group of Al-Jabariyyah Al-Khalisah is Al-Jahmiyyah, Al-Najjariyah, Al-Dirariyah and Al-Bakriyah. However, Al-Razi include that Al-Kullabiyah is one of the group at Al-Jabariyyah Al-Khalisah. Now we go to the tribe of Al-Jabariyyah Al-Khalisah. The first one is Al-Jahmiyyah. Al-Jahmiyyah is referring to Jam bin Safwan Al-Rasi. His followers were able to survive until the 5th century or 11 Masihi. However, some of them profess the Aqidah of Al-Ash'ari and become followers of the stream of Al-Ash'ariyah from Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The basic thinking such as Allah does not have the nature of Azali and that relate to humanization of Al-Ibad. The second is Al-Najjariyah. This group refer to Al-Hussein bin Muhammad al-Najjar. He is one of the figure of Ilmu Kalam in the time of the Abbasid. This group divide to Al-Burghutiyah, Al-Zafraniyah, Al-Mustadrika and Al-Hafsiyah. This group thinking is God wills for himself, God is the creator of good deeds, or evil human beings do takdir. And then the third group is Ad-Diraniyah. Ad-Diraniyah is the followers of Dirar bin Abu al-Kufi. They take the opinion of Abu Hanifah and his companion. The basic thinking of this group is such as God has no nature. The substance and nature of God are different and separate. Success to the believer, they can see God of the day of judgment in heaven, especially for mu'min. And lastly, Al-Bakriyah. They are the followers of Bakr ibn Ziyad al-Bahili. The basic thinking such as Allah can be seen on the day of judgment with the image He created. And lastly, hadith and deeds of slave according to Jabariyyah. In the study of hadith is often referred to as the study of fatalistic hadith because in the hadith teach the understanding of a fatalistic attitude. The following are two hadiths that have a fatalistic element. This hadith is used by the Jabariyyah. Al-Bani said that this hadith da'if. Muhammad al-Ghazali said This hadith is strong but has an irrational meaning because it raises the question of whether the inserts of this hadith give the impression that Islam teaches Muslims to be fatalistic or Jabariyyah. According to Muhammad Al-Ghazali, the fatalistic nature believed by the Jabariyyah group with this hadith is very difficult to accept in common sense as a teaching from the religion of Islam, because what is narrated in the hadith will show the consequence that human beings strive or not is no different, even there is no concept of effort in human being. Thank you.
Next, the impact of Jabariyyah thought on the belief of Muslims in Malaysia. Whether conscious or not, the faith that has been practiced by the Muslim community in Malaysia is based on the Jabariyyah thought. The most obvious aspect seen in the practice of the society is in the question of the human deed, Af'alul Ibad, and Allah deeds, Af'alullah. There are two aspects that strengthen the argument that the influence of Jabariyyah underlies the belief of the Malaysian Muslim community. The two aspects are teaching and learning materials and also from the scholars' figures. So the teaching that happens eventually leaving a deep impression in the minds of the Malays, so that they are more likely to surrender all things to Allah rather than trying to resolve themselves. This matter also arises in the concept of qada and qadar. In conclusion, although the sect of Jabariyyah has been long disappeared from the Islamic world, but its influence and effects of thought still exist and are inherited and adopted by the majority of Muslims today, including in Malaysia.
Okay, it can be concluded that although these theologies are increasingly disappearing in the Islamic world, but their influence and thinking still exist and are inherited by our society unconsciously. Thus, it can be understood that a faith and the true belief is very important so as not to deviate in carrying the image of Islam. This is to ensure that Muslims in the Malay world are always safe and peaceful without any elements of wrangling with the issues of faith that can demolish strongholds of Muslim solidarity.